All right, welcome to another edition of the Leadership and Television Show Black Men Series with your phenomenal host. Yes, I changed it again. Phenomenal host Ricardo D. Rice. Now, this is our last panel, and actually, this is kind of not a redo, but kind of a re-platform, if you will. These gentlemen, we had a great conversation on the live podcast, which airs on Fridays from 12 to 1. But they were so good. I'm giving them credit. I didn't tell them this. They were so good. I wanted to make sure they got on TV with the other panels. So today we're talking about the black men's psyche. You know, what do they think? How do they feel with all this going on in the world today? You know, what's going on mentally? So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting from my left.
Hi, I'm Byron Jamal. I'm a love guru. I'm a former pastor turned love coach, helping ordinary people find extraordinary love.
I gave him that title, Love Guru. We had this I gave him Love Guru.
You did.
Leo.
You did.
Hey, Leo Bryant, licensed professional counselor and author.
All right, Dr. Aaron J. Kimball. I am a clinical therapy intern, and I'm also a senior special projects manager with DeKalb County.
You're just going to throw that in, huh? You didn't say it last time. You're just going to throw that in today. You didn't say it last time. You throw that in today. All right, so let's start, because each of you are working with clients, African-American men with all different ages and stuff. So let's start with what you're finding with your clients that you're working with. We'll start with you, Byron.
Sure. So a lot of clients are in a space now where they're seeking more identity. They are realizing that their blackness is a blessing, and trying to put that into words, trying to walk that out, and seeing the pushback from your own culture can be very demoralizing. And so there's the sense that I want to express a greater part of myself, and yet I don't really have the space or freedom to do it in the way that I want to. And so being able to carve out that space and walk that is what a lot of men are trying to do right now.
Interesting. Leo?
My experience thus far has been, presently, is individuals are struggling, men specifically are struggling with finding purpose, as well as just, I guess, their tribes, as I like to categorize it, just a sense of belonging. So, and it's funny because this is the age of social media, right?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But more and more people are feeling, men, specifically black men, are feeling even more isolated and not relevant with all the attention being given.
Yeah.
Y'all started happy today, huh? We started from the pitcher's
stay
mound
here.
already? We're not starting from the umpire part? Okay, fine.
You asked the question.
I know. I didn't expect y'all to go ahead, come in and come out swinging.
Right.
Doors
Aaron,
barred.
gee, y'all come out swinging.
No, and to these fine gentlemen's points, I think one of the things that I am looking at when I see, my men of color, when they come in, they're looking at who they are without having to perform. We have a huge onus on black men to be able to perform. They're basketball players, they're teachers, they're whatever they are at this point, they're having to perform. But I'm recognizing that we're trying to break them down to the idea of who they are without having to perform.
Yes.
Without having to give something. Who they are as their most basic self.
That's really good.
All right, so let's start with Leo, because you work with you tend to work with the younger guys, the younger boys. So pre-COVID, what were we seeing from young black boys in schools? What were we seeing?
Well, pre-COVID, the majority, and I say majority of young black boys, I'm talking about child and adolescent, was really just trying to understand what the expectations of not only the classroom, but also as you kind of expand the school, the community, the world, because in their particular minds, they can be anything and do anything, but there's always this traditional, well, no, not really. There's a little box you got to fit in, little black boy.
Yeah.
And, so pre-adolescent, their mindset is, well, hey, I'm looking at TV, the Avengers, there's Black Panther and all, I can do anything. But in reality, no, you have a label, and you got to still kind of abide by this label. So pre-COVID, it was a lot of, with the child and adolescent population, a lot of, I'm fighting against whatever foolishness you all are trying to put on me. Now, during the pandemic, it's been a lot of, there aren't any consistent, there isn't a consistent pressure from schools, because obviously they're online, right, virtual. So, and there's more gaming and there's more virtual. So now this stigma that they had prior to, almost it's been exacerbated, or it's now operating on an exponential curve because there are no ceilings. So it's good and bad. What's going to be interesting to see is what happens in August.
Yeah.
When all of them are back in, given, hey, well, time out, wait a minute. It's almost like the movie Avengers Endgame, right? Or Infinity War. It's like, what happens when the blip, occurs, and now post-blip. That's almost exactly what is going on with the child and adolescent population specifically.
Good analogy.
All right, so Byron, let's go to you. So, you've written 15 books.
And counting.
And getting ready to do another one. I can't even squeeze out my second one. So I know you work with a lot of gay black men.
Yes.
So in their spaces, what are they finding in their spaces? Like, what do they need? Does it sound different or from straight men? Because, that's the stigma, that straight men and gay men are so worlds apart that their needs are so completely different. But I know you can either affirm or deny that. So let's start there.
Yeah, ultimately I deny that. Fundamentally, there are issues that men in general deal with. As mentioned by Leo, identity is a huge part of that. And whether you are a straight man or a gay man or a bisexual man, none of that matters. When you're trying to find purpose, you're trying to figure out who you are. I deal with a lot of people when they think of love, they feel like it's something that they have to earn. Yeah. It's something that I am loved because of this thing that I've done. So I am loved because I provide for my family. I am loved because I earn this degree. I am loved because I'm able to buy these things. And so love is something earned. It is something I have to do in order to have. It's the performance. And so this is where a lot of men across the board are right now, where they're trying to learn how to love themselves in a way that is out of all standards or norms of having to lean on doing something in order to affirm that.
Aaron, thoughts?
I hear what you're saying. I hear the word should. I should be at this place. I should be doing this.
Yes.
I have a lot of clients that come to me and they're like, well, I'm 42 and I should be, having my own business. I should be, having this level of education. I should be married. I should be with a partner, so on and so forth. And when we take out that word should, where are you? What are you comfortable with? What are you most proud of? What are your achievements? Are you a father? Are you, person at your job? What are you doing? We have to break that down, because when we take out the word should, I think it gives another promise of hope, another level where we can aspire to actually become, especially with African American men.
Leo, since I come to you a lot because you deal with the younger people most, they come with most of adults. Where does this stem from? Like, where does this start? In theory, I mean, I know we can't pinpoint exactly, but where does this kind of start, this thinking that I have to earn love or earn all these other things? Where does it kind of start?
Theoretically, right? And I'll just go from the 50s on up, and I won't give a dissertation on history. I'll just say that the change in the black community and how it used to be centrally focused and ran through the church to now we have options. It's like freedom. It's like, okay, you come from a certain type slave type situation or system, and now you're free. It's like, all right, well, what does free really look like? Right? And it's the same thing with today's world. It's like, okay, I have the freedom as a black man, a black person, to go international, travel, to do all these kind of industries, but it's like, I don't really think I want to get off the porch because I am familiar with the porch. So now options is daunting. So the courageous are the people who are able to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna blaze my own trail. Yes. Not everybody's a trailblazer. Yeah. And so a lot of black men are kind of reverting and going back into the movie Baby Boy, the crib. Like, let me go back to the cradle because it's safe. Yeah. They can't say the community because the community isn't what it used to be. You know what I'm saying?
It's not.
So hopefully I answered your question.
Actually, that's a shorter version I expected you to give, so I'm actually almost slightly impressed.
This is different.
Like, I actually gave you space to say something. You shortened yourself. I'm actually surprised by that. Okay, well, that caught me off guard. Okay, I'm trying to be appropriate today. Byron, thoughts on that?
I think it's brilliant. That's exactly what I would say as well. The truth is that we are really in this space where men are trying to find themselves within the context of a community that is so fractured and frayed that they latch on to one thing. So it used to be there was a whole culture around hip hop, and that community is really weak. There was the black church, and that community is all over the place right now with scandals and things of that nature. Lost a lot of credibility. Just your neighborhood used to be a space where and people don't even know their next door neighbors in many of their neighborhoods. So trying to find a sense of self. You think about it, what he was saying here, really in the sense, is that to really love yourself, if you can be a nomad and have no country affiliation, no fraternal affiliation, any kind of affiliation at all, love yourself fully, that is the most freeing and most symbolic form of love that you would really have. The moment you attach yourself to something and get validation from that thing and love from that thing, you lose the full potency of love that you have for yourself. And while we are naturally attached to things and must attach to things, you just have to keep that in mind, that if I'm loving myself because I'm attached to this thing, whether it's my title, my job, my occupation, my house, my car, if I'm gaining love from this, then I'm not loving myself in that same way. I'm giving it to that item.
Yeah.
I want to add to what he's saying if I can. Byron is exactly correct, right? You've been a love guru right now.
Y'all all are like 600. I don't know if I'm magnifying good energy, but y'all like at 106 today. What is really happening? They didn't do this on the podcast. I just want to put that out there. I don't know what's going on today.
So check this out, right? So I've had over the last 30 days an insurgence of 35 to 45-year-old black males. I'm not talking about men that you would think will come to counsel. I'm talking about these guys working traditional blue-collar jobs, right? And they sit on the video thing, session, and I give them a 30-minute consultation, right? And I tell them, hey, you're in a safe space. Do what you do, right? And undoubtedly, within 10 minutes, they break down, they crying, and they're real vulnerable. And everything we've said thus far is why they're so broken, right?
Yeah.
So my response to them is exactly what you just said was, hey, listen, you're not from Atlanta. You're not from Georgia. You're not from United States. You're a child of the universe.
Yes.
Where do you want to be from?
Yes.
What's your contribution? What tribe makes you feel at home? And then I have to kind of impart knowledge in terms of socioeconomically, psychologically, geographically, all these different, forms or platforms or places and ideals that they can kind of rest in. And once they feel like, okay, you got my back, I can relax, I ain't on the stage. No. And then they start to kind of just wander, and that child comes out and they start to feel calm and they start to heal.
Yes.
But it all breaks down, it all begins with them understanding you don't have to abide by some social construct.
Very true.
Do your thing.
That's it.
I'm
right
with
there.
you. I ain't gonna tell nobody your secret.
That's well stated.
Very, very true. I think we as black men, we have to develop a safe space for other black men to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And that is the issue. I have so many clients that come to me. I had one client that came to me and said, well, I don't know how to forgive. I've never had to do that before. And I said, well, let's break it down. Let's break down, some of the things that you've been taught. Where did you learn that from? So to my good brother Leo's point, it starts from the crib. And then if you don't deal with that, as adults, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, you're in our virtual space and you're crying because you haven't had the opportunity to really be who you are and really show what it is that, you want to show as a human being, as a man.
All right, that's a good place to take our first break because he actually led us into where we're going in our second break, which is talking about mothers and sons and that relationships and all those good things. So trust me, you want to come back. They're on 106 today. You want to come back. So stick around. Leadership and Television Show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so we're back on today's episode of the Leadership Blend television show, the Black Men series, and all these amazing gentlemen. We were talking about the way black men think, the spaces, all that good stuff. So now we're going to shift over to mothers and sons, and I call him Dr. Leo. That's your name, Dr. Leo. Dr. Leo has an interesting synopsis on this relationship.
Ooh.
Let's go.
Okay, well, it's actually really, really simple, and it's rooted in the fact that a woman cannot raise a man. Just like I refuse to believe a man can teach a young woman how to be a woman. There are parts and pieces of that idea that, can happen. But what I've learned, right, in now about 15 years of working in a school as a school counselor and as a private practice clinician in mental health, is that it truly does take a village to raise any individual.
Yes, sir.
But when a male child, specifically a black male child, enters puberty and is in those years of 11 through at least 18, he needs concrete, finite, hands-on, role models. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the father in the home, right? It does necessarily need to be a constant, consistent, here's how I operate as a male. You don't have to operate like I operate, but here is a platform, meaning non-verbally, these are my clues. Verbally, these are my clues. Here's my tone when I need to make a point, right? Here's my tone when I'm trying to make a subtle point. Here's what sarcasm looks like, in the barbershop.
Yeah.
Here's what sarcasm looks like in the courtroom. So it's not that a woman doesn't have the ability as much as a woman can't empathize. Just like I don't pretend to be able to empathize with a woman. I love women, right? But I'm not one. So I can only speak from my male perspective. Now, you have what's called double consciousness. That's when a person, they experience something, and for black men specifically, they experience, well, why am I in trouble? Why am I experiencing this? It's because I'm black. That's the first conscious. The second conscious, well, maybe it's because I'm a man. So there's a lot of situations that these young boys, these teenagers, these young men experience, and the mom wants to give them feedback based on her perspective, which is primarily nurture and nature, right? Whereas a dad or uncle or male's like, man, hey, let me tell you, first off, it ain't about you being black, it's about so on and so forth. So that automatically cuts to the chase of what that young man is dealing with. Give you another example, not quiet. I had a young boy at 15 years old, a little football player, he came in just angry. He didn't know he was angry. And we did an entire session on music. I said, hey man, what music you listen to? I listen to some rapper, I don't know who this dude is, right? I said, well, what video games you play? Fortnite, 2K, anything like 3 other video games. I said, well, what's the music in those games? So we broke down the music in those games. So then I paused and I played some Marvin Gaye, played some Usher, I played some Tupac. I played various artists from different generations. And I paused and let him understand, how does this make you feel? He's like, I see your point, Mr. Leo. Yeah, I know you see my point now. But see, that's an approach that a man would take with another man, because I know, little boy, you don't even know you mad. So I'm not gonna talk at you. I'm gonna educate you. You're gonna be quiet. You're gonna experience this, because man, we gotta feel stuff. You feel me?
Yes,
so,
sir.
but I'm a man. Now his mother wouldn't have thought to do that. She would have wanted to just rattle, talk. No, you gotta give me something to feel. I gotta, you know what I'm saying? It has to be tangible. So that's why I backpedal and I say that women cannot raise a man. Specifically during those transition years. It's just too much that they need that they don't know they need.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that a young male's father resonates different than just another black male in the home? But does it make a difference if it's his father? Genetically, just because they have the same makeup, that if my father speaks, I get it because we have the same genetics, versus just a black man who may be an uncle. Do you think it hits differently?
I'll let these brothers speak to it. I wasn't raised by my biological father, but my sister was, And she always and my other brother was, and they always tell me that it was a blessing I wasn't raised with my father because of, and that, it wasn't negative, it wasn't a slight on him, it was because he was in and out of jail, he was selling drugs, he was in abusive relationships, and the individuals that I did come across were my coaches. And so I'd never seen that.
Yep.
So I was always on the straight and narrow because the men I did see were men of certain caliber, and they might have had some issues at the house. I didn't know it. Yes. I just knew what they modeled in front of me. So in that particular situation, it was actually beneficial for me not to have my biological father, not because of genetics, but because of the culture.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and that's the only way I can answer that, because I wasn't raised by my father. I knew of him, but I didn't. So I don't know if these gentlemen were. I defer to them.
Yeah, sure.
Case by case basis, I would definitely say my father was an educator. For like, I grew up and this man was teaching and instructing and coaching and so on and so forth, and that was what I idealized. So my initial job, and I think you may or may not know this, my first job out of college, I was an educator. I was a teacher because I wanted to be like Daddy. That's what Daddy did.
Yes.
And so he kind of molded and shaped my career path for at least the first 5-6 years out of college, and then I got into my own. I wanted to do other things, but he's the reason why, I got a doctorate. He's the reason why I love to travel, so many things. So for me, that's my man.
Byron?
I definitely hear the mirroring that happens as an adopted child. I picked up a lot of qualities from my adoptive father. And so I definitely know that we as humans love to mirror whatever we're around. So you can take someone who from the hood, you can put them around, in a church community where everyone's talking, praise the Lord and all that, and then eventually a year later you follow up with them, they're saying, hey, praise the Lord, just like that. You put someone who has a heavy slang and you deeply indoctrinate them. Like I went to Germany for a foreign exchange when I was in high school, and in that time I didn't know any German. I get over there, my entire body changed because of the fresh breads and cheeses, and I get back over here and I can't eat any of it. My body literally changed, right? Mm-hmm. So there is something about you when you go into something that your body, your physiological nature can literally adapt and change to something. So how you grow up, you learn from whatever influence you have. Now there's some things in you that can push against the grain of what you're in front of to say, oh, this is a bad environment, I want to be better. But there's typically an influence somewhere that you latched hold to say, I want to be greater. So that little kid that's in the country that's saying, I want a bigger life, they're looking at the celebrities and the influencers, and they're modeling after that level of influence and that level of creativity and freedom, if they don't have it at home. So it's whatever you think is important, whatever you think is valuable, whatever you think is something of worth, then you're going to want to mirror that.
Yeah.
And so to his point with his father, he mirrored the educational side, and Leo's just brilliant. So, I'm sure he had that influence.
That's Dr. Leo. We're calling him Dr. Leo now.
Dr. Leo. And so, and for myself, I had parents that were free thinkers. So I myself am a free thinker. I thought that was valuable. If I didn't think that was valuable, I wouldn't have picked that up. And I think that's what's happening in our generation, because what we consider important often is not. And so this generation is growing up with the thought that these things that are not valuable are valuable. And so their thoughts and their actions all align toward directions that don't really have a lot of worth.
Yeah.
If I could jump back in this conversation, I want to give a credo and applause to the mothers, like my mother, who did raised 6 boys. I'm those 6 boys, 2 girls, 8 children, right? And let me tell you something. She never spoke ill of my father. Mm-hmm. She only told me of his greatness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And because of that, she planted seeds, right? I call them breadcrumbs.
Come on.
And I chased those breadcrumbs. I worked extra hard in sports. In my brain, I had dad. He was, behind a tree taking pictures of me or something. So I got to go hard, right? In basketball, whatever. And you know, even in the classroom, you know, she always would say he was so smart and so on and so forth, more intelligent, blah blah. So I was like, I gotta be smart in the classroom. So, going back to your original question, again, I'm not saying women can't be a part of a successful black male, you know, growing into an adulthood. I'm simply saying, know your role, know your lane, and don't overpromise. You know, it's almost like you should build into that child, if you're in that situation, what you want him to become. But if you have any information about his father, teach him his lineage.
Yeah.
It's no different than any other culture who they study, or my great grandfather, my so on and so forth. It's not always the father figure. It could be, you know, my ancestor. That's what drives me. I don't consider myself African American. Man, my heritage goes way beyond that. So, but you have to plant those seeds in those young children, right? Despite their present or contemporary situation, they're not that.
I think a good point to that is when I was living in Germany, I just thought of this. When I was living in Germany, I had a English host mother. She was from England. And so she was a transplant in Germany, trying to teach me about German and German culture, something she herself had to learn. She didn't grow up in. And I think that happens the same way when we think about women trying to raise men. You have someone who has learned a lot about it, you know, being around men, dating men, growing up with men. And so they've learned things about what men sort of should do. I can teach you some things, but I haven't been a man. So she was not German. She just happened to live in Germany and know some German things. So she could teach me some things about Germany. And that doesn't make her bad, you know. She was still a great host mother. I just think that if she was German, I probably would have learned more about the niches of German culture. And I think that's what we're missing. Those the little fine tuning, the little bit of fine tuning that happens that makes a man, that makes him uniquely ready for life, for responses, like you mentioned earlier, like how to respond to a situation that is so unique to the black male experience. Because she may not have dealt with that, she can't teach that. So now he has to learn on his own or have another influence outside. So more on the general things, she can hold it down, teach him, hey, do this, wear it like this, wear a suit like this. You know, she's seen that, so she could teach that. But when it comes to those fine-tuning
So it's almost emulation versus experience.
Yes.
I can emulate
Absolutely.
what I've seen,
Absolutely.
but I can't actually have these lived experience to be able to speak to them.
The only caveat to that is if her experience with men wasn't healthy, then some of the things she may teach him won't be healthy as well.
Which is what my good brother Leo said as well. And so I want to say this. These guys are absolutely correct. I did grow up with a father, so I was able to harness in on that experience and those finite touches. My mother taught me how to cook. You know, she taught me how to cook. She actually taught me how to clean too. My dad taught me how to be a man outside of the house. And that for me was, I mean, it's like when I was growing up and, you know, we were driving and whatnot, and he would tell me how to make sure how to keep your hands attended to. If you ever get pulled over, this is what you should do, so on and so forth. Those things for me were powerful. But I don't want to take away from my mother, who taught me how to be a man, how to love as well, and also how to give of myself to other people. And so those are two different directions, but I think at some point they converged and made me who I am.
That's good. I think we have to consider, though, that the teaching that we're talking about really is irrelevant if you take that boy out of this context, this American structure we have, and put him in another country or put him in an ashram in India or something like that. The teaching that we're talking about, what women can and cannot do for a man, is very specific to that community, to that lifestyle.
Sure.
So it really is irrelevant, almost all the teaching, if they go and live a completely different way. If a Christian went into a Muslim country and took on every bit of that, they would have to relearn everything. So how you grow up, really what I'm saying is that the boundaries, the demarcations that we have created are how we teach people is only because of the culture that we're in.
Yeah.
So if you change the culture, you have to change the teaching, right? It's a whole new lesson. So theoretically, the mother who's teaching may or may not have been good for the child here, may or may not be good for another context. Here in Atlanta, they move up to Boston. The teaching didn't work down here, but up there they thrive because of it. So it's a give and take on that. It's really more so giving people the tools to be able to navigate what they want. I think going back to our first conversation about purpose, being able to figure out what they want, how they want to identify, and how they want to live. And I think if you teach people that, if you could teach kids that, how to identify, this is something I like, this is what I want more of, I want to see more of this in my life, I want to feel like this more, how can I create this and as a stream in my life to see this more consistently. I think if you could teach that, how to verbalize emotions, desires, then you can really flow anywhere and do anything.
Hold that thought, because that's a good place to take a commercial. I already see you huffing. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to have more of the Black Men series, Mentality, on Leadership with the host, Ricardo D. Rice. Okay, I just want to come back in and say y'all are annoying because there's never enough time with you three. Y'all are annoying. Y'all never have enough time for y'all. It doesn't matter how much time I give y'all, it's never enough. All right, Leo, your thought really quickly because we need to get into the last segment.
Okay, I just wanted to just bring everything full circle and give more context to the conversation. There's a lot of individuals, a lot of young men that I'm dealing with right now who they're in and out of jail, they're in and out of detentions, and they're in and out of, and it comes back to the mothers did the best they could.
Yeah.
But when you start talking at a male, you start emasculating them.
Yes, sir.
When you start emasculating them, you create this internal volcano that's just this anger, and it just starts to bubble and bubble and bubble. And it takes a dad, it takes a man to be like, hey, dude, you're doing too much. Relax. Don't let that get to you. But if that male voice isn't there to kind of just, dissipate and reduce and mitigate, that rumbling, it explodes. It explodes in the form of domestic violence when they get into partnerships as young adults, right? And even older adults.
Yeah.
It's because they never knew that you don't give a woman your power.
Come on.
You don't let, just because she's talking at you, you don't let those words, penetrate your soul and your spirit, right? And so a big part of what I do as a therapist, and this is the therapist part, not the counselor, the therapist part, I have to go back and identify who emasculated you first and when did it happen.
Yes.
Sir. Let me give this little boy inside of you tools to deal with that situation.
Yes.
And let that boy in your mind mentally practice the next situation, the next situation, the next situation. And then mentally, it's like mental reps in sports.
Yep.
The more you take mental reps, when you practically get on the field, on the court, now you can perform a little bit faster because you've thought about it, you forecasted, and then come making that present tense.
Yes, sir.
That's when anger management can happen because they now have the tools and they practice using them from a little boy to now.
I want to add to that point. I know we got to go.
No, actually, I think we should stay in this space. So I like that. So y'all stay in this space.
Okay.
It's almost like, and my good brother knows this as well. I don't know if you play sports. Coaches sometimes do this.
Well, just before you start, I didn't, so I'm slightly offended, but carry on.
You're included. Coaches will sometimes, not in a mean way, but they tear players down.
In a mean way.
Your whole demeanor changed. You all right? There's something you need to talk about, Leo? Your whole demeanor changed.
They tear us down to a certain extent. But in that process of tearing down, they build us up again. So when we talk about the anger component, they mitigate, to his point, they mitigate this anger, or they redirect it to another space where that player can utilize that anger in the correct way. Then they start to build them back up again. And when you're built back up again, that's when you start to see, man, I don't have to be like this. I don't have to be angry. I don't have to redirect my anger and frustration, because anger needs an outlet, to these women or to these men or to whomever.
That's good.
That's it.
I was just, while you were saying that, I was thinking about loss and how loss is so necessary to the development of a man.
Yeah.
Being able to handle loss. That in order for you to really know who you are going to be or want to be, sometimes you have to lose the image of who you were.
Come on.
And as an athlete, your identity changes all the time.
All the time.
You're sometimes a star player, sometimes you're the worst player on that team, or sometimes you're in the middle. You're trying to always navigate and negotiate who you are in every context. Who you are at work, in your field. Are you the all-star? You not. And so being able to be okay with the loss is how you maintain what we're going back to self-love, that level of self-love through the transitions. Man, I'm not the main one on this. Okay, that's cool. I'm all right this time. What can I do? Am I okay with that? Do I want to change it? What is it? And so being able to find those spaces and be able to navigate that way, that's where you really, as a man, develop into your true strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can break down even further, right? I had a conversation with a young lady. She's 21 years old, and she has a 1-year-old son, and she has all these issues with black men, all these failed relationships. I'm not a love guru, I'm just Leo. But I'm gonna give you my perspective. I said, well, hey, listen, sweetheart, I can only talk to you from a father to a daughter, right? That's all I can do. So I spoke to her from that context, and I said, let me tell you something. Men have three, let's break it down, from my experience, heterosexual males have three real main functions: the mind, their heart, and the little pee-pee, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, you gotta identify with, this is a boy that's transitioning into a man.
Yep.
So when you're dealing with a boy who isn't holistic, meaning he hasn't learned how to channel all three parts of himself, right? You may be talking to his mind, you may be talking to his heart, you may be talking to his pee-pee. Now, it's on you to identify what part you're talking to him. Now, in psychology, we call it emotional intelligence.
Come on.
So once you can identify, right, where he's at, then you can penetrate his mind and his heart and his soul.
Yeah.
So I told her, so you're getting dogged out by boys because you want their heart, but you're only attracting or talking to or dealing with one of their male anatomy or their mind.
Yeah.
And that goes to but there's another side to the coin. If the boys don't have a father, demonstrating this is how I love your mother.
Yes.
These are the ways I love your mother.
Yes,
That's it.
They don't. That cognitive connection doesn't happen in terms of, okay, I'm 12, I'm 15, I'm 21. I'm not gonna dog this young lady out.
Yes, sir.
This could be my mother. This could be my sister. They can't say that in their minds because it wasn't modeled, right? So now you have grown boys running around in men bodies, degrading women, and creating a culture that we think is acceptable. But the real men understand this is a queen.
Yes.
So you got both sides. I'll be quiet and let somebody else take the ball and run with it.
That's good.
Brother, you had a very good point. Both of you actually did. I want to kind of piggyback off of something that you stated. Ego strength. And as therapists, we all know this. When a little boy is growing up, we have to empower him. We have to strengthen his ego. If he doesn't have that, he does grow into the idea that I can't curse. Okay, that that I got to take over the world. I have to be this. I have to do that. I got to perform.
Yes.
I have to be this toxic masculine person. And unfortunately, when he gets into a relationship, that ego ain't gonna fly. So you have to minimize that ego in order to get into a relationship with anyone, not just a female, with a male as well. And when you get to the point where that ego is out of control, that's when you get the abusiveness. That's when you get the I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And that's when you get the ultimate result of you being incarcerated or dead.
All right, so let's go into finale. So we talked about the only way that black men can be their best selves is safe spaces.
Yes.
How do we create these safe spaces? And give that in your final thought, starting with you.
I think these kind of conversations help being able to know that it's okay to have the conversation is the first thing. So making it clear that these conversations are necessary, are healthy, saying that it is okay to have them. Because I think what happens is there are conversations that happen amongst men who are traditionally close. Like they'll be close friends, maybe childhood friends, maybe fraternal friends, something like that. And they'll have these conversations over drinks or cigars or something like that. But on a larger context, we don't see those conversations. So while you think, okay, with my boys, I can have this conversation, and it's right here amongst the 3-4 of us, in the sense that as a community, whatever that means for us right now, as a community, that we are having that conversation. Once we say that's okay, then I think we'll have that, and that will be more acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to oversimplify this, but I don't care. I think it's all stories. It's just stories.
Agreed.
If you think about the origin of man, right? How do we even know about this stuff?
Yes,
Stories.
all stories.
Yeah.
It's about educating and empowering young. Let me tell you something I do with my sons. I don't talk at them. I ask them, well, hey, how do you feel? Well, here's what I found. And I give it to them. I let them read it for themselves. The first book I wrote, right? It's Lake Trafford Boys. It's my experience from 5th grade to 6th grade, and I got some other ones. I don't talk to my sons. I give them material, and I say, you decipher it for yourself. Here go the Bible, decipher for yourself. Here's the Quran, decipher for yourself. Here's a book by, Paulo Coelho, decipher for yourself. Here's a book by so on and so forth. That's where I got my information.
Yes.
You're your own individual person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you my perspective based on my education. So don't debate with me, because you debating with, I see this picture on the wall, I may see it one way and you see the same picture, you see it totally different. So I'm not your elder. I'm nothing more than another person traveling on a different timeline. Yeah. And here's the work I've done to get to where I am. So now once you've read my sources, you can understand my mentality. Yeah. Now we can have a conversation. Sure. I've been 8 and 9 and 10 and 12, so I'm ready for you. You got to get on my level.
Come on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not a chronological age thing. That's an education thing. I've been able to conversate with people beyond my age range for a long time because I love to read and listen.
Yes, sir.
So my conversation and my final words is give people, leave breadcrumbs. Yeah. My book series is all about breadcrumbs.
Come on.
I can't possibly talk to everybody in this world and give them my theological perspective, philosophical perspective, educational perspective. What I can do is write a book and let you read at your own leisure.
Yeah.
I'll do a step further and do a little audio thing and you can just listen. I'm done.
You sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm done.
Aaron?
I think as Leo stated, Dr. Leo.
Yeah, we leave him Dr. Leo.
Dr. Leo.
Okay, as he stated, shared human experiences, and Byron touched on this as well. Shared human experiences, understanding that I've shared or I've lived this particular experience and you're living this experience. How can we get together? And how can we bond? How can we, I use this word with my couples all the time, how can we compromise and see where we are meeting in the middle? What are you learning from me? What am I learning from you? Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the main things, and allowing them to flow in their authenticity. Mm-hmm. Whatever that looks like for them. I have a client who I just got last week, as a matter of fact, who is thinking of transitioning. Now, he identifies now as a male. He is 16 years old, has to get parents' permission, and he's getting a ton of flack from his parents, getting a ton of flack from the school, and so on and so forth. What I'm teaching him to do at this point is learn about being in his authentic self and living in his authenticity.
That's good.
That's powerful.
All right, well, I've had my fill of them, so we're pretty much out of time. And I want to say thank you to my amazing gentlemen. I think they're going for a boy band group or something. Like they get together, it's like boy power. I don't know what's happening right now.
Right to the 90s,
right.
It works. It works. They have some kind of magic that works. So special thanks to Byron, Dr. Lee, the Love Guru Byron, Dr. Leo, and
what are we naming?
I don't know. We got to find a name for Aaron. I don't know. Fly Aaron, because he always does his own thing. So he's Fly Aaron.
Fly Aaron.
So
Appreciate
special thanks to my guest today. Check out the other 4 panels. They're all on ricecommunity.com. That's Rice with a W. They'll also be on Image of a Man Network, which airs on Mondays and Thursdays at 10 and 5. But theirs will episode next Thursday at 10 and 5. But it'll all be on the website. So check out the website. We will see you same time, same place on the Leadership Men television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.